So I hope the screen is visible. So in the last class, we have just seen why data mining. We have seen one example where this Google flu. How can it? I mean, there are huge amount of information, but when you analyze this, aggregate the all the available information and you analyze, you get to see something. Basically, you can turn data into knowledge. That we had seen. Next, we had seen the KDD process. Next, what kind of data can be mined? That is database, data warehouse, and we had seen one that is transactional data. Now we will move forward. So the next part is what technologies can be used. So these are different. This particular figure gives different, I mean, possible technologies that can be used, but it doesn't mean only these are possible. These are the few which are given in the textbook. So we'll just see one by one. I mean, not everything, maybe most of them. The first thing is your statistics. So most probably you might be knowing what exactly do you mean by statistics. It's just uh, mainly a collection and analysis and presentation of data. So statistics is nothing but a data. So the data mining and the statistics have a coherent, what is that? Inherent connection you can tell. Okay? So between statistics and data mining, there is an inherent connection because both deals with the data basically. So what exactly do you mean by statistical model? This so basically a statistical model you can call it as a set of mathematical functions that describe behavior of an object. Here object can be anything. Maybe if you take the university class, the object can be professors, students, subjects, no, professors, students. So if you consider university, so these two are the objects in the target class. So target class, for example, could be university. Okay? But these are in terms of variables and their associated probabilities. So statistical model basically is a set of mathematical function that describe behavior of an object in terms of random variables and their probabilities. So you can use the statistics to develop uh, tools which can be used for prediction as well as forecasting. So this statistical models can also be used to summarize or describe a collection of data. So these are the few technology. Basically, statistics is one way, or the mathematical model which is built using statistics can be one of the technologies which can be employed in data mining. So the statistical methods can also be used to verify the results which you have got after doing the data mining. So there is something called hypothetical testing where you write a hypothesis. Hypothesis is something like you write two statements. Like for example, if you are trying to develop an application with a good accuracy, which does some prediction. So it's like the hypothesis could be there are two null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis could be something like the prediction is not happening properly. An alternate hypothesis could be something like the prediction is happening accurately. So based on this different test, for example, chi-square test and other, there are F test, there are T test. So there are many type of statistical tests. Based on this test, you can either tell the null hypothesis has failed or the alternate hypothesis has failed. So based on this, few basically you can verify or validate the data of, I mean, results of your data mining. So the next technology which could be used as a part of your data mining is your machine learning. So machine learning is obviously quite popular. So it does investigates how your computer can learn or maybe improve their performance based on the given data. So there are few things in the machine learning. So you can tell few types of learnings. One is called supervised learning. Supervised. So supervised all classification. So if you want to classify something between two classes, say there are, I mean, or multiple classes, there are maybe three classes or two classes. Just take two classes. Either there is a picture here, you want to classify that either as a dog or a cat, or maybe if it's or some maybe snake. So, so this classification requires or should have a supervised learning mechanism. Supervised learning is learning which comes from labeled examples in the training data set. For the classification model to classify this particular picture, which is a dog, as one of the classification classes possible in the data set. That is either a dog or a class or a cat or a snake. So the label should be present in the data set. So the data, I mean the learning which happens with the help of the labels is called supervised learning. There is one more type of learning in machine learning called unsupervised. So supervised, as I told you, label is important. Class label. What are the different class possible in the data set? So that label is important. Only then you can classify a particular test data into one of the classes. So that is supervised. So unsupervised is obviously ulta of it. So the machine tries to learn something, but there is no labels to it. So for unsupervised, the data mining, I mean, this for supervised the data mining task is classification. For unsupervised the data mining class will be clustering. So for all the clustering classifications or clustering operations or tasks, we need or the type of learning which it follows. This particular task which follows is unsupervised. So I mean, the major differences for supervised, there will be labels in data set. For unsupervised, there will be no labels with data set. So the machine has to learn without help of labels. So there is something called one more type of learning called semi-supervised. Supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised. So it's like, as I mean, name itself suggests, semi-supervised. There may be few classes. There may be few classes for which labels are present. There may be few classes for which labels are not present. So this is semi-supervised. So next, one last thing with respect to machine learning is there is something called active learning. Supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, and active learning. So it's like active learning is basically a machine learning approach in which users play active role. You as a user will play active role in the active learning process. So it's like the active learning, it can ask a user to label an example. The user with his expertise or with his domain knowledge will label a particular class, or he gives a particular name to a particular class. So which with this with users help, the machine tries to learn something. So ultimate goal of this active learning is to optimize optimize the model by acquiring users domain knowledge. So this is with respect to the machine learning. So next is data systems and data warehouse. These two things we had seen in the last class. It's like data base, you already know. It is just users create, maintain, and distribute the data which can be used for a specific application. And data warehouse, these are these the data which is stored in database are cleaned and integrated from multiple sources. So this data warehouse, the data in a particular data warehouse, in one data warehouse might belong to a particular organization. So these are the few technologies. The database system and data warehouse are one of the few technologies which can be used for data mining. Next is information retrieval. This is one major thing where what exactly do you mean by information retrieval, the definition. So information retrieval, you can call it as a technique where you search for a document. There are multiple documents, D1, D2, D3. You search for a particular document based on a keyword. So maybe the keyword is MIT. You want to search in which documents this keyword is present. It might be present in all, or it might be present in one, or it might not be present in any. So you want to retrieve only those documents. Suppose MIT is present in D2 only. So you are retrieving the document in which that MIT is present. So it's like you are retrieving the document. Here the information is the document. So there are, apart from documents, you can tell the other way, other thing which can retrieve it, multimedia. It's like you want to this is text. So using text, MIT is just a text. So using text, you're trying to retrieve a document. But instead of text, you can use a image. So in that case, this particular thing, what you are trying to do is in the document is text retrieval. But if you use an image to retrieve something, so that becomes multimedia retrieval. Okay. So these are the few things. What then there are, you can tell there are few differences with your normal database retrieval, that is DBMS, and this IR. So what are the major differences? Major differences with respect to what assumptions this IR make. So the assumptions with respect to IR is it assumes data, all data are unstructured. It assumes all data are unstructured. That is one assumption with which your IR makes. The second is it assumes all the queries are formed by just keywords. Okay. All the queries it assumes are formed by just keywords. Okay. But in your database, that is DBMS, all the queries are not by keywords. It is by complex queries. It's SQL queries. Okay. So with respect to these assumptions, you can differentiate between your normal database and information retrieval. The differences is with what assumptions the IR make. One is it assumes all data are unstructured in nature, and second is it assumes queries are simple keywords. So as I told you, MIT is a keyword. You are trying to retrieve a document in which MIT is present. The query is just the keyword, one single keyword, or maybe a combination of keywords like MIT or MAHE. If either of this is present, the document is retrieved, or MIT and MAHE. If both are present in a single document, it is retrieved. So basically, queries are nothing but just keywords in information retrieval. But it can be a complex SQL query in case of DBMS. So these are the few technologies we'll be studying with. Next, we'll move to what kind of applications are targeted by machine learning. So basically, your data mining. Yes, you can call it as a highly application driven discipline. So data mining can be called as a highly application oriented discipline or application driven technology. So as part of your course, we'll be studying two applications. That is, one is business intelligence. The second is search engines. These two applications we'll see. So business intelligence till now was a subject in seventh semester, but when you go to seventh semester, anyways, it's just PE. So this particular subject you won't be studying. So it's just basics. What I will be discussing here. So as you all know, when you run a business, it might be any business, uh, starting from something like, business means organization, obviously. So it can be a small startup, or it can be something as huge as your Facebook or Amazon. Some startup or Amazon. So irrespective of size of the industry or the size of the business you are taking care of, you cannot deny that it is critical for any business to understand the commercial context. It is very critical for any business, irrespective of size of the business or what product you are trying to sell. So it is very important to understand the commercial context of the organization, like what customers they want to target, or you want to target when you're running a business. What is the market for it? What is the supply and resources in the country which you are trying to do the business? Who are your competitors? So these four, that is, who are your customers? Who are your, what is the market like in the country which you are trying to sell a particular product? What is the supply and resources in that country? And who are the competitors for your product which you are trying to market in a particular country? So understanding of this or analysis of this is very important. Okay. So business intelligence this BI does the exact thing. That is, there are few technologies or few tools which are called your BI tools, which provide historical, current, and future views of a particular operation you are trying to use. Okay. So example of this BI technologies or BI tools could be reporting. So you can create report based on something which is of your interest. There is something called online analytical processing. We will see more of it. The short form is OLAP. OLAP, online analytical processing. Next, these are the few we can just tell business tools which are possible. Or using business intelligence tools, you can perform all this, which obviously helps in your final goal. That is to understand the market better or understand your prospective whether the market which you are trying to start or which you are already started, what is the scope of it? How was it before? What is the current scope? If you start, what is the future? What are the predictions? So all this your business intelligence will help you to understand. And one thing is how important this business intelligence is for any business. Okay. So, or maybe how important is data mining for business intelligence? Okay. So it's like without data mining, many business may not be able to perform effective market analysis. Obviously, you have multiple data here. So you have this business intelligence tools also. You have to use these tools to perform data mining so as to get a effective market analysis. Okay. So it's like market analysis. Apart from this, you can do something like custom compare customer feedback, maybe for similar products, but by your competitors, or same thing for customer feedback for similar products. Next is maybe discover strengths and weaknesses of your competitors who are trying to sell same products or who are in similar business as you are, and what could be your strategy to retain the customers who could be loyal to you, or maybe who could end up giving you more business. So for all this you need business intelligence, for which data mining is also important. So this is one application. The second application is the web search engine. So this about web search engine, obviously you all know Google is one example. So basically it's a specialized computer server that searches information on the web, information of your choice. Okay. So your the search results for your web engine is usually, or the result is usually a list. It will list. So this list is called hits, HITS. So list is also called as hits. So this hit could be anything. It might be web pages, it might be images, or it might be any type of files or documents. Okay. So basically, it's like this thing, or it might be some data which is available in, or the entire database could be retrieved, the public database, or you can sometimes you can get open directories. So these are the few hits which are possible when you try to search something using web search engine. So obviously, these are very essential for data mining applications, because obviously the web search involves searching a very large data. So bigger data, better for you to analyze things, or better results, or better predictions you can make about a particular application which you are trying to or analyze or trying to build. So, but the problem is, I mean, there are few challenges when you try to use search engine for your data mining. The first challenge is they have to handle a very huge and ever growing amount of data. It's like if you take a particular database or data set, you just download from net, whichever data set you want, it will be limited because you're downloading something from the net. It might be very huge, maybe it's like 300 GB of data with maybe somewhere around 1 or 2 lakh plus images, or maybe 10 lakh plus images. This is the data which you have downloaded, but you can at least tell that this is the limit, this is the maximum data which you will be working on. But the search engine cannot limit on such a data, because today it might be 30 GB. After, I mean, right now, not even today, right now it might be 30 GB of data or 300 GB of data, but the next second or maybe next minute, it might be, if I assume at as 300 now, it might be 350 GB of data, because the data is ever growing. Okay. So this particular thing is a challenge when you try to use search engine for data mining. And the search engine, one more thing is search engine obviously will have to deal with online data. It's like search engine, what the developer or the person who builds a search engine, he would have built it for offline application. Offline means there are limited amount of data which your search engine can search for. But when you try to convert the search engine at the first case, when it is being built, it will be built for offline cases, but ultimately it has to be converted to any data which is available online also. So it's like online data is ever growing. That is one thing. And the context, the search engine should return context specific information. For example, I will search Apple. So I might mean fruit or the company or Apple products. So based on my query, I should be able to get the results of my interest. That is, you can call it as context aware search engines. So offline data, offline data is very limited. So it's very easy to actually I mean, what do you call it as? Very easy to assume the context, or maybe to tell which context I'm talking about, or the user can is talking about. But when the search engine have to deal with online data, so it's very difficult to actually assume or get to know what exactly the user is trying to search for, which context. Apple, again, as I told you, can be a fruit or a company. So the context aware things come to picture when dealing with online. Next is it has to deal with the queries that are of asked very small number of times. I might be searching for some query like that. There might be very few, maybe hundreds of people, just hundreds. There are billions in world, or billions in the world who will be using this particular search engine. But I might be the only one, or like me, another 100. It's like very few when compared to billions of people who will be using this search engine. So this query, the keyword which I will be using, or maybe like me, hundreds other 100 might be using, this query might be the data might be very limited, or it has to deal with the queries that are asked very small number of times. I might be interested with this particular keyword which is very unique or very less people might have used. I might be interested maybe for 1 month because I have some work with this particular query. After 1 month, I might not be interested at all. So these queries which are not much used, or the keywords which are rarely used, even that queries your search engine should take care of. So these are the few challenges, or you can tell applications which your data mining will be dealing with. So what are the major issues? One second. Okay. So there are wait 1 second. My battery is low. 1 second. Okay. So these are the we will see few major issues in data mining. So I guess there are around 5 to 6 major issues. We'll just see one by one. The first major issue which we'll be dealing with is what is the methodology which will be used for data mining. Okay. There are it's like researchers in the field of data mining. They have been developing new data mining methodologies every now and then. So maybe every year you might end up getting a new methodology which you can use for performing many data mining tasks. So it's like this methodology which you might be using might involve many things such as uh, like investigation, investigation into new knowledge. The other thing is mining multimedia data or multimedia space. The next is interdisciplinary effort. So data mining, you can't expect all the data will be domain specific. So there might be few applications in which data might involve data which belongs to multiple disciplinary. One might be biology, one might be computer science, one might be physics, one might be chemistry. So these data are multidisciplinary in nature. It's like obviously you can't expect your data should be would be perfect with no uncertainty, with no noise, or it is complete. You cannot expect it. So this data mining methodology should handle this uncertainty also. There might be multiple types of noise which should be handled, and the data might be incomplete. Like for few tuples or for few columns, there might not be any data entered. Before using this data, you have to fill that particular thing by something so that there is no incomplete data. So once that is done, there is something called pattern evaluation. It's like all based on the mining methodology which you have used, you might get multiple patterns. Pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, etc. So all, even though you might end up extracting multiple patterns, all these patterns might not be of your interest as a user. I might be interested in just pattern 2, pattern 1 and pattern 3. Even though I am getting something, it might not be of my interest. Okay. So maybe you might have to evaluate pattern to see which pattern is more helpful for me, or maybe to see which pattern I'm actually genuinely interested in. So these are the few challenges in the methodology. One is the methodology should be able to mine various new kinds of knowledge. It's not something which was pre-existing. The mining knowledge should be multi-dimensional space. Multi-dimensional, one example had shown even in the last class. Multi-dimensional will be in form of cube. If you can see, one part of this in the last example address was present. So in this part, what items were sold, that was present. And in this part, this domain, this particular thing, the country in which, not the country, the quartile time, basically quartile 1, quartile 2, that was present. So basically this entire cube deals with multi-dimensional space of the data. So they are multi-dimensional. You can perform operation and the items, the product names all together. So methodology which you are trying to use should be able to mine knowledge from even in multidimensional space, not just single. And as I told you, data mining is an interdisciplinary effort. It's not just effort for one particular domain. So it should be able to handle even interdisciplinary data. And these are quite obvious. There will be few noises. There might be few incomplete data. There are uncertainties which you have to solve before using the data for a particular application. And finally, pattern evaluation. Like all patterns generated by data mining process are, even though interesting, might not be of your need. So it's like that's why I told your this P1 is not your interest. This P2 might not be of your interest. You will tell P2 is more interesting because that is something which you might be looking for. So this which pattern is interesting varies from user to user. So there might be the methodology should provide some techniques to evaluate the pattern. So this is one of the issues. The second is user interaction. Obviously the user plays a very important role in a data mining process. It's like there are few in research areas which deals with user interaction in data mining. One is how to interact, how a user can interact, how to incorporate users feedback. First is how to interact with a data mining system. That one question. The second is how to incorporate a user's background knowledge. See, data mining system might not be having the exact background knowledge, but you as a user, usually you will have some knowledge regarding background of the data. So how to incorporate this background knowledge into the data mining system. Next is how to visualize and present the data. You have some data, you perform some data mining on it, you get some results. How to present the results so that other users can understand and analyze the results. So these three are the issues which comes under user interaction with respect to data mining system. Next is efficiency and scalability. The data mining algorithms or data mining in general deals with data, and these data are ever growing. So to take care or handle this ever growing data, your data mining algorithm should also be scaled up according to need. So scaling up the algorithms without losing the efficiency is one issue. And since there are abundant amount of information or abundant of data present, storing all the data in a single space. This is data. I mean, the database one. This is database two. So storing all the available data, that is terabytes of data or petabytes of data in a single location, in a single database, is not possible. So obviously, you tend to distribute it into multiple location. Maybe first few rows you stay here, second few rows you store it in database 2, the third you store it in database 3. Okay, this all you will learn in your distributed systems, how to store data in a distributed manner. So once the data is stored in a distributed manner, you can use the algorithms, or you can use parallel distributed algorithms. So the very fact that there are huge number of data which cannot be stored in a single location or at a single location gave rise to the concept of distributed data storing. So this distributed data storing gave rise to a concept called parallel, distributed, and incremental data mining algorithms. Because since data is stored in different locations, you can parallelly mine those data, or you can use parallel algorithms to perform certain tasks on it. So this again, how to efficiently and effectively do this, and as and when the situation arises, how to effectively scale up the data mining algorithms. Again, this is one more issue. Finally, the diversity of data. You can't expect the data to be always textual in nature or always image in nature. It might be text, image, videos, or combination of this. If you take a web page, you can see all three in one. So it should be able to handle complex type of data which is diverse in nature. And this web, as you all know, it's very dynamic. It is network. It might contain huge network of systems connect with one another. So how to mine data from such a huge network, and how to take advantage of this networking between two systems, or maybe between two repositories which contains global data. And these are the few challenges. One more issue, and finally, data mining and society. How this data mining is helpful for society. What are the social impacts of this data mining? What data mining? How does it solve our or make our everyday life better. This is one thing. Or data mining, you cannot tell will be always used for a good purpose. If my intention is not right, I might use data mining, which might not be very good for the society. Like I might mine data from the credit card database to steal your data. So that is something not which is helpful for the society. And data mining will also give rise to privacy concerns. So again, there are few issues. Data mining might not be always done with good intention. Data mining will also give rise to privacy issues because somebody is mining your data, which might not be, I mean, which might be very confidential for you. So how to guarantee that the privacy of individual or the privacy of the society in general is not breached? That is one more issue. So with this, it's like we come to an end for chapter 1. So chapter 1, we just studied what is database, what are the kinds of technologies that is used, what applications which could be targeted or used in tandem with your data mining, what are the major issues in data mining, the KD process, and what types of data, that is your database data, data warehouse data, and your traditional transaction database. So these are the few things we studied in chapter 1. Okay. Now we will go to chapter 2. The chapter 2 is all about how well you get to know your data. Like you have data, but without any pre-processing knowledge or without any domain knowledge about the data or how the data is stored, what your data contains, or how the data can be used, there is no point in using the data, or you never know how this data could be used. Without knowing that, you cannot actually move forward in building your application. So in this chapter, we will have a closer look about the data objects, the attribute types, mainly, I mean, at least for this class. Next is, so mainly we'll learn how this uh, data about data, that is how this metadata, which helps you in data pre-processing. So data pre-processing is required. You can't directly jump use the data for your applications. You have to pre-process the data so that the data is brought into a format which can be used for data mining. You cannot straight away use the data for data mining as it is. It has to be converted into a particular format or maybe some pre-processing. Here pre-processing can be cleaning and integration also, and selection also. So there might be few pre-processing which has to be done for the data to be useful for data mining. So, but for doing this pre-processing steps, you need to understand the data. You need to get to know your data well. So we'll study one by one. I mean, we'll start with the basic things. First is, what do you mean by data object? So here in data mining, a data object represents an entity. Your data mining represents, I mean, data objects represents an entity. So if you want, if you consider a sales database, you're considering a sales database, the entities or the data objects in sales databases or might be customers, your items. This might be your data objects or entities with respect to sale database. If you consider medical database, the data objects might be doctors or patients. If you consider university database, this I told, it might be students, professors, and maybe even courses. So these are the examples of data objects. So what do you mean by an object? What is data objects we have seen. What it is, what do you mean by data object? It is nothing but it represents an entity in a particular database. Examples I have given. Now, data object is done. What do you mean by attribute? So attribute is basically a data field. You might be knowing what attribute means. It's like if you consider a database which is your Excel sheet, the attribute is nothing but these columns on the top. So it's basically a data field which represents your characteristics or feature of a particular data object. Okay. So there are few synonyms which your attributes can have, or your there's something called dimension. You call it dimension, or features, or variables. Attribute, dimensions, features, and variables. These four terms are used interchangeably usually. Okay. So what are the, I mean, if you consider your sales, so customer is one data object. What could be the attribute of this customer object? Customer object attributes could be customer ID. Customer ID could be one attribute. Customer name could be one more attribute. Next is as I told you, attribute could be your customer ID, customer name, and customer address. So these three could be the attributes of customer, which is a object type of sales database. Okay. Hopefully, you are clear with what exactly do you mean by data object and what do you mean by an attribute of a data object. Now, there is something called attribute vector. Attribute vector, which is also called as feature vector. For a particular attribute, say if I consider CID, customer ID, there might be multiple values. There may be multiple values. These entire lot or a set of these or observed values for a given attribute constitute something called attribute vector or a feature vector. So you need to know what do you mean by a feature vector. It is nothing but a collection of all the observed values for a given attribute. So the attribute can be univariate, bivariate, or anything based on how many attributes are involved. If only one attribute is involved, the distribution of data is known as univariate. A bivariate distribution involves two attributes. A trivariate might be three attributes. Basically, multivariate means multiple attributes. So these are the few ways how you can distribute the data. The data distribution can be univariate, bivariate, and so on. So basically, two or more could be multivariate in nature. Okay. Next, we will see what are the types of attributes. There are multiple types. We'll see one by one. The first type is nominal attribute. Nominal. Okay. Here, the nominal, the name means, the term nominal means something which is related to names. So usually the nominal attributes are like names of things. Consider names. So one example is your hair color and marital status are the two attributes which describe person object. So the possible values for hair color could be black, brown, red, etc. Marital status could be single, married, divorced, or widowed. So as you can see, the values are names. The black is a particular name of a color. Single is, you can tell it's a name for a status. Married, again, you're giving a name for the status. So attributes which uh, attributes for which the values of the attributes, if they are related to names somehow, so those type of attributes are called nominal attributes. Okay. So another example of your nominal attribute could be occupation. So occupation, you can be a teacher, you can be a dentist, you can be a programmer, you can be a doctor. So these are the names given to a occupation of the user of or of a particular person. So all this occupation is attribute, but the values which it can hold is some things or the value. I mean the values which you can this particular attribute can be filled with this related to names. Somehow it's related to names. So such attributes are called nominal attributes. And one thing you have to know is this nominal attributes are also called as categorical attributes. So what do you mean by categorical attributes and what do you mean by nominal attributes refer to the same thing. Sometimes we'll be using the name as nominal. In some other cases, we'll be using name as categorical attributes. But categorical attributes also refers to the nominal attributes. This is one thing you have to uh, remember. And one thing is, as I told you, hair color can be black, brown, and red. Okay. But this particular things can be assigned names also, like particular code. For example, you can assign code 1, which means black, code 2, which in your application might be brown, code 3, which in your application might be red. So the nominal attributes can also be represented in terms of integers, which is nothing but a coded version, a coded form of your original values. Again, it's like, can you perform any, see, these are integers, I agree, but can you perform any operations on it? Mathematical operations, is it possible on these integers? Anyone? Anyone? I need some response. Unmute and speak up. Anyone? Or should I call specific names? Don't type. If you type, nothing would be visible. Just unmute and speak up.
No, sir, we cannot perform mathematical operations on them.
Yeah, so basically, even though you are trying to, what is that, use numerical things, that is, or integers, there is no logic in, or there is no meaning in doing this mathematical operations on it. So that is one more thing you have to remember. These nominal attributes, you cannot make use of any mathematical operations. Um, you cannot perform mean, median, or maybe any mode, any kind of mathematical operations on it. Even if you take customer ID is one, maybe if you consider as nominal attributes, the values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does it make any sense subtracting one customer ID from another? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so it's like nominal attributes, you cannot quantify it. So the nominal attributes are not quantitative. That is one thing you have to remember. So the next attribute is binary attributes. So binary attributes, only two categories are present. It's either 0 or 1, where usually 0 means attribute is absent, 1 means the attribute is present. Okay. So it's like if you consider, for example, a patient database. Okay. So there, or consider a scenario where patient goes or undergoes a medical test. So there are two possible outcomes. Either the test is positive or the test is negative. There is nothing third option or in between option between 1 and 0. So if the outcome is 0, you can tell whatever the test, for example, corona is 0, negative. Output is 1, the corona is positive, or maybe the patient has corona. So there are binary attributes, that means there are only two possible things. So this binary attributes are refers to as Boolean attributes. If you can give the outcomes are true or false. So it's like you can there is something called symmetric binary attribute and asymmetric binary attribute. Again, these two are important. What do you mean by asymmetric binary attribute? There are two states. Binary, there cannot be three states. So there are two states. If both of these states are equally important, such type of binary attributes are symmetric binary attributes. Or there you call it as symmetric binary attributes. For example, your gender, male and female. Both these are equally important. You cannot tell male is important, more important, or female is more important. Both these are equally important. So such type of attributes are called symmetric binary attributes. For example, somebody is going to what is that undergo a test for HIV, for example. Outcome is either positive or negative. But here positive is more important. Negative, you can what is that? You can tell it's not much. It doesn't have much impact on the user. But if the test becomes positive, it might have a major impact on the user. For him, this positive is more important. Not getting positive is more important than this particular thing. So this particular case where one particular uh, outcome is more important than the other, such cases is called asymmetric. So your binary attributes are two types, symmetric and asymmetric. Symmetric is when both the genders are equally important. Asymmetric is where one outcome dominates the other outcome. This is more important, or this is more rare, or this might have more impact on the user than this particular result. So such cases, you call the binary attributes to be asymmetric in nature. The next is ordinal attributes. It's like, for example, in your nominal attributes, even though the hair color, as I told you, black, white, red, brown, there is no order. You cannot mention this or write this in a particular sequence. Marital status, again, this cannot be in a particular sequence. You can write married, divorced, single, and maybe widowed. There is no particular sequence as a particular sequence is not important here. Even the hair color, black, white, red, brown, the sequence is not important. But in any data or in any application, if the sequence is important, or maybe you want to have a possible values in a meaningful order, or you want to rank between the attributes, then we use ordinal attributes in such cases. Okay? One thing is your grade. You can order this as A plus A, B, C, D, E, and F. You can order them in a particular way. Professional rank. If you consider this university thing, assistant professor, senior, assistant professor, selection, associate, finally professor. You can rank in a particular thing. Or maybe if you consider this army, so maybe it's something like soldier, next maybe major, next lieutenant general, maybe something like that. Finally, the head of the defense, something like that. So you can actually rank. Okay. And these ordinal attributes can also be used for survey of ratings. It's like rate your feedback. 1, dissatisfied. 2, neutral. 3, satisfied. 4, very happy. So this kind of thing where survey comes into picture. So even in that case, the attributes which are used are known as your ordinal attributes. Okay. Though the central tendency is the mathematical operations which can be performed on the ordinal attribute. You make use of mean and median. You can tell mode. What do you mean by mode in maths? Anyone? What is mode in
Highest
maths?
minus lowest value.
Yeah. So basically, is it highest minus lowest? Are you sure? What do you mean by mode of a data?
Like the frequency of a given element is more than the other, and the one that is
Frequency.
occurring
That
less.
frequency. Correct. The frequency. It's not highest minus lowest. It's frequency. For example, in color, red is occurring. Would be 4. Black is occurring twice. Mode of this will be 2. So you can use this mode as well as the median, that is the middle value in ordered sequence, because it can be ordered in a particular way in a particular sequence. So you can use mode and median, or you can perform, or the mathematical operations which can be used on this ordinal attributes could be mode and median. You cannot use mean here. So you cannot find mean of a data. You can just use mode, like how many A plus are there. You can find out how many A plus A are there. You can find out what is the middle value in order sequence. that you can find out if few things are in ordered in a particular manner, either ascending or descending. What is the mean of, I mean, what is the median of it? That it can be found out. But one thing which you cannot do here is the mean. The next is numerical attributes. We have seen nominal, binary, ordinal. Next is numerical attributes. So what do you mean by numeric attributes? Numeric attributes, as you all know, it's that is for numbers. So this is quantitative in nature. You can quantify it. Nominal attributes are not quantifiable, or they are not quantitative data. But numeric attributes are quantitative in nature. There are two types. Your numeric attributes can be interval scaled or ratio scaled. Ratio, it's in the next slide. So numeric attributes can be interval scaled or ratio scaled. So what do you mean by this interval scaled? It's like it can be, it can actually split up into equal size units. Okay. And the values of this interval scale can be positive, 0, or negative. Okay. And in addition to providing ranking, it also allows us to compare and quantify the differences between values. One example is temperature. Temperature, you can tell, is between 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. You can put it in between interval, this particular interval. Okay. And the temperature can be positive, 0, or even negative. You can find the differences between temperature. 20 minus 10 degrees gives 10 degrees Celsius. It makes sense. You cannot tell this as senseless. Differences make sense. So all this are called interval scale. Okay. Now, what do you mean by ratio scale? So one major difference between this interval scaled and the ratio scaled is with respect to 0 point. There is something called 0 point. And taking the same example, temperature, is there a 0 point? 0 point means is there any situation which whatever the value you take, either positive or 0 or negative, where you can make the statement there is no temperature at all?
No, sir.
No, you cannot, because even 0 degree Celsius is a temperature. 0 degree Fahrenheit is a temperature. There is some temperature. You cannot tell there is no temperature here. Even 0 degrees is a temperature. You need to store few items. Recently, if you consider this particular vaccine for coronavirus, it has to be stored between 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. So even 0 degrees is a temperature. You cannot tell there is no temperature at all. 0 degrees is temperature. Minus 1 degrees is a temperature. You can quantify it. So in interval scale, there is no 0 point. But in ratio scale, there is an inherent 0 point. For example, if you consider the temperature itself, Kelvin is one measure of temperature. 0 Kelvin, like 0 degree Kelvin. At this point, your particles in a matter will have zero kinetic energy. At 0 degree Kelvin, your particles in matter will have zero kinetic energy. So there is a 0 point in any ratio scale attributes. So that another examples in for, can you give one example for, I mean, this is one example which I have given. Can you give any attributes where 0 means nothing? I mean, it has a 0 point, 0 means nothing. Can you give, can anyone give one attribute where 0 has a meaning, which means nothing? One attribute, any attribute. I think just think of one attribute for which if it assumes or if it gets the value 0, it means it's nothing. It's actually 0. Any attribute which
Like
you might
money,
encounter
like
Mister.
money, if it's written as 0, then it will be considered as 0 balance.
It's like money in hand, might be one attribute, 0 balance. It's like you have nothing. Something, I mean, one attribute which you might encounter next semester during placement. Seventh semester, there's placements. One thing, one attribute, one ratio skill attribute which is directly related to placement. If especially if you are a fresher. What was
Backlog.
the especially if you are a fresher, what is that one thing which you won't be having?
Experience.
Years of experience. So here years of experience is one attribute where 0 means actually nothing. And maybe one more could be number of words in a document. If it is 0, it actually means nothing. There are no words in a document. So these are the few uh, what is that, attributes which are ratio scaled. Ratio scale, which means that there is inherent 0 point in the values which this ratio scaled attribute can be assigned with. And here last thing that is within this subtopic, there's something called discrete versus continuous attributes. Okay, what do you mean by discrete attribute? What do you mean by continuous? So you call a particular attribute a discrete. It's like if it has a finite, either finite or countably infinite. Try to understand this. The values which attribute can take is finite or countably infinite. Means it might be too huge for you to count. I mean, manually, but still it could be counted. Either finite or countably infinite. If you have values of such nature, it's called discrete values. For example, hair color. There are maybe, if you, I mean, you take all the permutation combinations of a particular hair color. I mean, considering genuine, I mean, you can color your hair, that is different. But from birth, from your genes, maybe there are around 10 types of hair color possible. I'm just, maybe I'm exaggerating. It might not be even 10. Like brown, red, black, white. So there are few. Assuming just round it off to 10. So there there are finite number of values which this hair color attribute can take. You can assign this only finite number of values to this color, this hair color. So this hair color attribute is discrete. and the discrete may or may not have a numerical value. As I told you, hair color, your 0 in this might be black, 1 might be brown, 2 might be red, etc. So it can be represented using numerical values also. But it is either finite or countably infinite. For example, age. Age of a human being can be 1 to 150 max, considering the longest living person, or maybe exaggerate here also, it's fine. 1 to 200. Is there anyone who have lived beyond 200 years? Human beings? At least I don't know. It might be between this. So it is finite in nature. Okay. And can you have discussed one example? This slide. While discussing nominal attributes, I have told one example. Can you take the same? I mean, tell me which example which I discussed there, which holds good for this countably infinite scenario. See, all these are infinite. I mean, finite. There are maximum 10 colors which are possible. There are 1 to 200, maximum 200 years. Someone can live. You can count the number of years he would have lived before, obviously, before he died. So, what is that one thing, one attribute, which can be an example for this countably infinite scenario? As I told you, countably infinite is you can keep extending it, but still it won't be infinite. You can still count it. It might be very huge to count manually, or manually impossible, or very tedious, but still it is countable. Even though it tends to infinite, it is countable. Is there any attribute? I have discussed it in this class, only nominal attributes.
Customer ID.
Yeah, customer ID is one thing, because customer ID today, my company might have 100 customers. Tomorrow it might be 200. After 10 years, 2 billion. After 20 years, 7 billion. After maybe 50 years, 500 billion. Again, I'm just trying to explain the concept. Don't go into the literal thing. 500 billion. Even so many people are not there on Earth. I'm just telling. So it's like, even though 500 billion is too huge, the now customer ID can be 1 to 500 billion. It is countably infinite. You can count it still. Even though it is very difficult, you can still count it. So this customer ID is one example for the discrete attribute, but it is countably infinite. Next, and one more example for this could be your zip codes for a particular country. Zip codes might increase. Today, one government will come, they can make one area with a specific zip code. Tomorrow, another government will come, they might make two more. If all this it keeps on growing, then after 10 years, you might be having multiple zip codes all over the country. So even without any addition or deletion, if I ask you to count every zip code in the entire of India, from Jammu Kashmir till Kanyakumari, everything if you want to count, it might be lakhs, or even maybe billions. I mean, crores of this thing might be there possibility, because every location will have one zip code. But still, even though it tends to infinite. Infinite here means too much. It is still countable. If you give maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, if you do the same work, you can still tell there are around maybe 5 crore zip codes available in India, or 10 crore zip codes available in India. So zip code is one more example. Next, this is with respect to discrete. So next is continuous. So continuous is obviously something which is not discrete constitutes your continuous attributes. So here numerical attributes, that is this numerical attributes and continuous attributes are usually interchangeable. So if you see few books, they have used continuous attributes. In few other books, they have used numerical attributes. So it's like something like anywhere where just numerical things come into picture. For example, your real numbers. Real numbers constitutes this continuous attributes. The values might be either in integers or real numbers. And but in general, this continuous attributes are represented using your floating point variables. Yeah, so this is one thing you have to remember. It can be real or it can be real numbers or integers, but in general, usually your continuous attributes are represented using floating points. Okay. So with this, we end this class. I mean, this is something new, and again, I need more time for this. From here, your problems will also come into picture. I mean, you will be solving few problems like calculating mean, calculating median, mode, etc. And it's like how to represent the data, visualize the data, basically using quartile graph, or maybe using your blocks plot, and given data, how to plot this graphs, etc. All those things we'll see in the next class. But before leaving, just wait for 1 minute. I will just download the attendance. After the attendance, you can leave.